Tirso. ¿Cómo están? Llegamos.
I came to Angola as a 28-year-old, so a couple of years ago now. I did not especially ask for Angola. I wanted to be a missionary, wherever there was a need for one. When they sent me, I had to look at the map because I wasn't quite sure where exactly Angola was located. But at the same time, I felt a great love. I practically lived in the war zone of this civil conflict for 6 years. The first shock I lived through on coming here, the most powerful of all, was the contact I had with the society here in Luena, a highly militarized town where everyone was a soldier. A vindication of violence as a means of achieving peace, a constant excitement with war and violence, all in pursuit of peace. It stood out in sharp contrast with the life we led in our Christian communities. Our diocese is the largest in terms of area of all of Angola's dioceses, 223,000 square kilometres, with around 800,000 inhabitants. Being realistic, I believe that of those, about 10% or even less are Catholics. In the country as a whole, about 50 to 60%. That means that we are probably situated on a territory with proportionately the least number of Catholics. Part of the reason for this is that evangelization began very late here, whilst on the other hand the consequences of war were very destructive here. All the churches were destroyed and the great majority of missionaries left the country. There is a great yearning for God. If we don't fill it, others will. The majority of our population is rural. They live off the land as well as from fishing, because though there is no sea, there are many rivers and lakes, vast areas that become submerged in the rainy season. However, this is not only a poor area, but also a forgotten one. We have no trains and no good roads to transport our goods to other parts of the country. The majority of our people have no electricity supply. There are great difficulties with access to education. The majority still cannot read or write. For example, many people here earn $100 a month, whilst the price of a sack of cement can reach 50 euros. In other words, one wage packet is worth 2 sacks of cement. Many things are lacking here. This is the diocese of Moshiko, otherwise known as Luena. Kazombo, we have to leave from here, bypass all that, then drive around here to reach Kazombo. Kazombo parish is huge, covering an area of 48,000 square kilometres. There are communities here that have never been visited. There was nobody to go to them. It seems that the more distant the communities are, the more appreciative they are of a missionary's and bishop's visitation. There are practically no paved roads here. There are places with incredible mud, sand, whole tracts of sand, potholes big enough to damage a car and even throw it upside down. Bridges. We survived many difficult situations on bridges, including the threat of falling into the abyss, down a crevice, as well as into a river. Crossing rivers, sometimes without a bridge or unstable, dangerous ones, is a challenge. One must like adventure. If not, things could become somewhat difficult. There are all sorts of surprises on the road. There are roads that pass through areas with an abundance of wild animals. Lions, hyenas, lycons, which are packs of wild dogs. And then there is the condition of the roads. The holes that we have, which many a time means spending 3-4 hours trying to get a vehicle out of the mud. We also have a big problem with landmines in this province. In some places their position is noted, and we know the whereabouts of minefields. There is a sign, a triangle, a warning of a mine threat. But there are areas that are cleared of mines twice over, as new minefields are discovered in the vicinity. A mine exploded on my road. 2 people died. God spared me that time. Why? I don't know. Other mine accidents do in fact happen often. Alas, mines do not have a sell-by date. It is a weapon like no other, in that nobody directs it. Anybody who passes, young or old, will set a mine off. The first challenge we face is the great shortage of missionaries and priests. The majority of our 14 parishes have no priest. We have many parishes where serving priests are elderly. On the other hand, the diocese had up to now no organizational structures of its own, enabling it to train priests. That was one of our great dilemmas. How to train priests locally, instill in them a love of diocese and the ability to identify with this nation, put down roots here and seek to evangelize it. That is why, in spite of many difficulties, we decided to set up a propaedeutical seminary. Next year we want to open an intermediate seminary. There are areas that have had no missionary for over 30 years. Last year we visited a certain community, a populous and animated community that had never taken part in a mass.
Então vamos fazer como sempre fazemos assim pequeno encontro, né? Já fizemos há poucos dias, mas agora
Our second priority is training catechists. We run an itinerant catechist education course that aims to alphabetize, but also to teach participants how to build a chapel, recite morning and evening prayers, how to encourage various community groups to greater activity, and how to teach the catechism. Parishes, for example, number 130 communities, and so the number of catechists oscillates around the 200 mark. In such situations, catechists are both guides and leaders of their respective communities. We have 14 parishes, some very far-flung. However, the chief characteristic is that in their majority they are in ruins. Mission houses, day schools, boarding schools, and of course the churches. Practically not a single new church has been built in the last 30 years.